You're listening to the Superpower Up Podcast with your superpower experts. This is the place where we explore real-life superpowers and give you the tools to unlock your own.
Hello, everyone. This is Tonya Dawn Recla, your superpower expert, and I'm like grinning from ear to ear. This is such a fun conversation. Already, I really adore this gentleman, excuse me, and the work that he does in the world. All of a sudden, I'm getting choked up. I guess my grin is impacting that. He came to us through Dr. Saida Desilets, who has been on my show. Neva's interviewed her also about how to talk to kids about sex. And so already we know that he carries that amazing kind of yummy, good vibe in the world. And he's incredibly, incredibly impressive. So Tim Freke is author of 35 books that have been translated into more than 15 languages. And his latest books, DeepAwake and oulStory, are all about these things that we talk about, right? What is the spiritual awakening? What do you do with it? Like, how do you know? What do you all of that good stuff. And so we're going to talk to him today about signs of spiritual awakening and kind of what comes after that. Right. And so he's been exploring spirituality since his awakening when he was 12, which is just amazing. And we love those stories. So I'm really, really excited to have him here with us, sharing his wisdom with you all and just kind of identifying how he's walking his path and inspiring you all to continue walking yours. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Tim Freke to the show. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you. It's the delight to be on the show with.
Well, we're so excited to have you. I've been looking forward to this interview. The first question we ask people is, what are your superpowers?
What a great first question that is. Well, it's a lovely idea. And thinking about it, when you invited me on the show, I thought, it turns out that I seem to have the superpower that I can lead people to what I call the deep awake state. I have this ability, it seems, to guide people to this shift in consciousness that I experienced, as you said in the intro, when I was 12, and I've been diving into ever since. And it's a state of consciousness that's marked by a profound sense of communion and oneness with all of life, and a sense of the fundamental goodness of existence, and most important of all for me, this enormous love. Well, I got just big love. There's this overwhelming love, like the whole universe is pulsating with it. And that's what really impressed me so much when I was 12, and I kind of fell into this state but without intending to, and thought, what the hell's that? And what I've gone deeper and deeper into myself and tried to find and lose and find and get to know, and then work out how to take other people there. And what I've done is to develop ways of doing that. And I have developed, I think, the ability in my speaking and my books to make some very profound and deep ideas easy to understand. So I guess that's my superpower.
Well, I think it's a great one. The challenge I see is that there's a lot of ambiguity and a lot of people who are confused. And at least in my experience, a big part of this process is the, walking into the undefinable until you're kind of on the way out of it. And then you kind of get it. And so that part of the process seems to really throw people off, because most of us are so trained in such logical, rational thinking, like we're not going to take a step forward unless we know the path and the goal and where we're going and all these steps. And the spiritual awakening journey, in my opinion, is, you have to be willing to kind of put your foot down without even seeing the ground beneath your foot. And it's like the Indiana Jones, like throwing the sand out to see where the bridge is or whatever. And it's quite opposite of what most of us are trained in. So I think it's really crucial when, those individuals who feel like they can put some sort of construct, process, structure, something to it to make it just a little bit more tangible, is really, really powerful.
The key for me, I think, Tonya, has been the development of what I call paralogical thinking, as a term, a philosophical term that I've developed, which sounds a bit scary, but it's really not. You can think of it as both and thinking rather than either or thinking. Mm-hmm. And what that does with awakening is that the approach that I teach, this deep awake approach, is not about waking up to something beyond our ego, beyond our humanity, instead of our humanity.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's not awakening to the great mystery instead of our rational thinking, but as well. So that when you see that, it becomes so much easier to wake up to this vast oneness when you actually allow your individual humanity rather than trying to get rid of it or deny it, and see that they both coexist. So my job, it feels, as a communicator of this, is to try and model that, to be authentically myself, not to set myself up as some sort of guru or take on any sort of specialness or anything which isn't authentic, and be what I am, which is a vulnerable human being on a journey of evolution, which means I'm constantly discovering things which I've missed and learning. And when I touch my deepest being, it turns out I'm the whole universe. And so I can be both this deep awake presence and a human being making this journey, and just not trying to be anything else than Tim. And that, I find, really, really helps people go, oh, maybe I could do that too. And what I found astonishingly to me, really, is actually people can. And I've seen thousands of people actually across the world in so many different cultures step into this deep awake state and feel this oneness and this big love in a way that really they just can't miss it.
I love the verbiage of deep awake. That the verbiage I received was the abstract frequency is kind of what I call it, because there was no way to encompass everything that you just said. Like everything kind of gets smooshed all together, and it's all valuable. I often find myself saying in conversation with our members or clients that, I don't throw out anything. Like all of it is clues, and I think it was kind of my way of saying exactly what you just said, which is like, it's all in there. Like it's all there for a reason. Like you have all of it. Like, so the process of, I know for me, it was really challenging early on going through, the well-meaning advice of, okay, well, you have to quiet your mind, or you have to turn off your mind and all these other things. And and it took me quite a while to get to the space where I'm like, okay, I've got a bachelor's degree and a master's degree pretty much in how to think. And then I was a counterintelligence agent. Like this mind is not going to get shut off. And so when I kind of opened the space, I said, okay, is there a way that can look different? Is there a way that I can maybe incorporate that and my individuality and kind of what I brought into the equation into this, what I call the abstract frequency, the awakened state. And it was so freeing to do that, to be like, wait, but maybe I don't want to meditate. Like maybe I want to do things differently, or maybe, and just really giving people permission to say, I think it's okay. Like if you do it your way, like I really do think that that's what we're all so hungry for. And we want to see other people doing it. We want to feel free to do it for ourselves. All of these pieces. And so I love the fact that you're giving voice to that. But before we get too far into that, let's back up a second, because the show we're talking about on the show today, we're talking about signs of spiritual awakening. So can you kind of put a definition to spiritual awakening? Like, what do we mean by that?
So there is, if we look at our identity, and we can, you can just do it right now, you can see what people have been describing since the ancient of times, which is that we experience a flow of sensation and a flow of imagination, two very different qualities of experience. And the ancients called that soma and psyche, which we translate as body and soul. And those two parts of our experience, one which is material and fixed and formed, and the other which is fluid and immaterial, it's a completely different dimension, it's not in space. This is body and soul. And this is what makes us an individual. And they're both amazing. They both have problems to them too, because it's both and, but they're both extraordinary. And then the question is, what is experiencing all of that? What's the thing which is experiencing the flow of experience and has been there since the very first moment of our lives, maybe before? There is something which is the same now as when I was 8, because it doesn't change. And it's a presence. It's a presence of awareness, you could call it. The traditional word is spirit, which means essence. It's your being. And what awakening is just tuning into the presence which is always present, this being. And when you do that, you start to discover what I discover is that my individual being is actually one with all being. And that's when this huge sense of communion and oneness comes, and the love, because the love is how the oneness feels. So as I become conscious that behind my individuality, which I love, and like I love yours, I love our individuality is a wonderful thing, because through it, we can both wake up to the oneness and express the oneness. We can wake up to the love and express the love.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, we're going to take a quick break, but before we do, where can people go to find out more about you?
My name is a bit strange, and as long as you spell it right, you'll find me. It's Tim Freke, Freke. And if you go to timfreke.com, you'll find all the things that I'm doing, the events I'm running. I'm coming to America, for instance, in October to run a Deep Awakening retreat where, I'm pretty convinced anyone who comes will experience this Deep Awake state for themselves, because nearly everybody does. It's so accessible now. It's extraordinary.
Oh, beautiful.
I've become so confident, but it's not in myself. It's not like, well, I've got magic powers. I'm just Tim. But we each have magic powers in us. And when we give it the opportunity, it just comes out. So we can wake each other up, which is what happens when we come together.
Oh,
so
beautifully.
There's information on that, and there's an online philosophy course about how to understand the universe we're in from this new perspective, and lots of inspirational videos. In fact, if you sign up to the newsletter, there's an endless, every week we're putting out inspirational videos. So all of that's timothyfreke.com.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, we have lots more to talk about, folks. Stay with us. We're talking with Tim Freke about signs of spiritual awakening. When we come back from the break, we're going to dive in and tell you how you can start invoking this process within yourself. So stay with us, and we'll be right back.
Are you here to change the world? Do you talk about things like vibration, frequency, awakening, and consciousness? Are you pretty sure you have superpowers? The Superpower Net is unlike normal coaching programs and conscious communities. We provide training, intuitive guidance, peer-to-peer learning, intensive one-on-one coaching, and a high vibrational network of people just like you. When you join the net, you get 24/7 access to a collaborative group of people who support you as you master your personal power and unlock your superpowers. If you're ready to use your superpowers to change the world, then join the Superpower Net today. Visit superpowerexperts.com/the-net to learn more.
Awesome. You're listening to the Super Power Up podcast. And today we're talking with Tim Freke about signs of spiritual awakening. So I'm again, just grinning from ear to ear, because right before the break, you brought up something so incredibly near and dear to my heart. And it is the idea that, in my words, I talk about how the magic exists between all of us. We operate, one of the core values of Superpower Experts is synergistic collaboration. Because what I found was that when I moved into this space, following blindly the guidance of, create a system and bring people together and have them collaborate. It's okay, sure, I can do that. Well, there's a lot of complexity that goes into that. And what I found was that, traditional cooperative theory or collaboration, they're great, but none of them really felt like they were hitting the essence of what I experienced when I was able to move into that really fluid, yummy, gooey kind of space with people who were authentically being themselves, had a sense of self-dominion, had that awakening kind of feel to them in that love space. And so, I called it synergistic collaboration, just to further identify, there is something that occurs when we allow the energy that exists between us to create. And you gave voice to it of what you've witnessed at your programs and your workshops and retreats and stuff, that when we come together, something magic. I mean, even biblically, where two or more of you gather in my name, there also will I be. It speaks to the energy, the exponentially powerful energy that comes forward when we commit to just kind of ripping off the pretenses and just being together. And that really, obviously is what drives me, to encourage people to step into that state with each other. And I think magic happens there.
I couldn't agree with you more. When I look back and I think, well, so what was the secret? When did it start happening that I found I could take people to this state? Because to begin with, when I was younger, it just happened by accident. It would happen to me by accident, and it would happen to other people around me when it was happening to me. But what's changed is that I have this confidence that we can just go there. And there's two things. One is this both and approach, which goes, don't deny your humanity, don't deny your thinking mind, don't deny your feelings and your emotions, and just let all of your humanity be. In fact, accept it, love it, and then wake up to this deep being as well. That was one thing which we've touched on. And the other was, hey, rather than just meditating on yourself, withdrawing, let's actually meditate together, but not just in the same room, but actually on each other. Let's connect. So what I developed over the last 20 years is a whole series of connection meditations, which connect us soul to soul through the senses, through looking or listening or touch, in really safe ways. And if you create the right environment, what happens is that souls, we start to commune with each other. And this deep awake state opens up as a communion of souls. So the secret to my superpower, I guess, is I bring people together. I give them some simple but profound ideas which will allow them to understand their life in a new way. And then I create a really safe environment where they can connect in a very, very deep way. And when that happens, it just opens up of itself. And the next thing you know, there's this communion of soul, which we experience as oneness and love.
Well, and I love the fact that the word, like, to facilitate really comes forward in the sense of, where I see a lot of change agents, light workers, practitioners, coaches, fumble is in exactly that space that you're talking about, where it's like, how do you be the expert, be the leader, and then also be the student always, the guide, and how do you kind of hold those seemingly dichotomous spaces? And so, and you've given such beautiful and eloquent voice to it. It's all of that. It's like, yes, and more. And I see that challenge with folks who, are dealing with the marketing and the social media presence and the personal branding and all of these other pieces. And those are important. We have to attend to like the necessary aspects of business. And then, but where they fumble is like they're receiving all this really high vibrational, high frequency, guided, connected information, and they've been gifted with these visions to steward. And it feels very disingenuous to have both. And one of my favorite quotes is Whitman, I contradict myself very well. I contradict myself. I contain multitudes, and it's like, screw everything. Like,
absolutely.
It's like, what? Say something. Yep, that's right. I get it. And when I gave myself permission to be contradictory, it was just beautiful, and I think sometimes we go over the top with your message has to be consistent. And, one of the ways that we work with that is, yes, your business, your brand has to be very, very specific. You, however, are incredibly multifaceted. Like, you'll never encapsulate your message into a single soundbite because it's impossible. It's too challenging. And so helping people sit in that space. So I love hearing everything that you're talking about. How can people, I know so many of our folks are resonating with what you're saying, and I encourage all of you to go to Tim's site and check out his work. I really do feel strongly that he's a great pioneer and steward of this work. But right now, what can people start doing now to make changes toward that more harmonious blend of those contradictions?
Well, I think just the shift away from the word contradiction can help. I mean, I love the woman for exactly the reason you say, but the word tends to insinuate there's two things which conflict. Whereas what this paralogical thinking, this both and thinking does is it says, look, like the yin yang sign, opposites come together. Like, you can't have left without right. And in the same way, if you're going to be a teacher, make sure you're always a student and show that to people. If you know something, also have humility. Because you don't know everything. If you're going to wake up to this great oneness, really embody your individuality so that these opposites come together. So that we're not seeing that it's not, that they conflict in any way at all. Actually, they need to be together. And that the spirituality for me needs to be both awakening and embodiment. So it's know yourself and then show yourself. Both, not one or the other.
Beautiful.
So that,
I love that.
Loving being loving, not one or the other.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, absolutely. Like I just keep hearing like, amen, amen, amen. Like I don't really even know what I can add to that because, and I love I love hearing it from you and your words and what you were stewarding and folks recognize like this is what that looks like. You know, it would be so easy for Tim and I to sit here and be like, well, da 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 da, well, da 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 da, da da da. And it's like, well, what happens when two seeming, I don't know, competitors come together in the same space and say, what? Oh, you too? Oh, cool. Yeah, I see you, you know, and opening up yourself to be seen and really sitting in that synergy together. I remember early on with the podcast, you know, we're 2 years old now. In the very beginning, you know, some of the people that were coming to us to be interviewed, I was like, what am I doing? Like, why would I be featuring them? Like, we do the same thing. And it was such a great space to sit in to say, awesome, I'm just going to make this my mission to totally uplift everybody doing this amazing work in the world. And what I found was that on the other side of that fear and that scarcity was this amazing playground where we can all come together and we all get more. Like, it doesn't make any sense logically, you know, but it makes total sense in the synergy of things, that the exponential power of coming together and trusting and being and you know, being love and all that stuff that you're giving voice to really does create that magical and we're not talking like just feel good spaces. Like, Tim has a business, you know, he does things in the world, like he creates things, like he, you know, he's following the material world kind of components to some degree. Like, it's not everybody just has to take a vow of poverty and sit on the mountaintop together. Like, you can smoosh it all together.
It's the both and again, I think, Tony. It's because, you know, I have a family, and one of my duties, I love to do it, but it's a responsibility, is that I need to support them. And my daughter's just about to become 18 and just off to university and all of that stuff. And that's my personal responsibility. And that's something I feel passionate about. And as well, not in contradiction, I see that I have a chance to play a role in the collective evolution that's happening right now as we move into what I think will be the next evolutionary leap into a DeepAwake state. I'm not someone who thinks that's just going to happen because the date changes or it's the age of Aquarius. Personally, I think we're going to work for it. And I suspect I might see a little bit of it. But I hope my daughter will see more of it because of what I do. And that's a service. And I love what you're doing and the way that you put it, because it feels like, look, we need to support each other. This is so small, really, still. And the very least we can do is just see it in each other, support in each other, share everything we can with each other, because when you become a servant of love, what else can you do?
Beautiful. Yeah, I had a good friend. I met back up with her recently, and we hadn't talked in quite a while. And it was so interesting because one of the questions she asked me was like, "Oh, are you still getting all these downloads and all this information?" And I kind of looked at it, like, it took me a second, because I was like, "Oh, wow!" Like, the space that I'm sitting in now, it's like I'm pretty much like just in service to this all the time. Like, I don't delineate between, you know, and it brought me back. Like, I remember, like, I had to, you know, I like that you say work for it, because there was a time when receiving information, giving voice to it, and all these other things was like, that was a little bit nerve wracking, you know, like, especially coming out of the spy world, like as a counter intel agent, like now you're what, like the psychic, like what is going on here? And so I think a lot of times we're, you know, kind of put ourselves in those situations. I don't know if we just like the comedy of it or what, but it, you know, and it just reminded me of evolution, and reminded me that was a space that she and I had connected in. And it wasn't that long ago, probably, in the scheme of things, but it just felt like eons ago. I was like, oh wow, like, you know, and I just smiled at the reminder of it's this constant flow and flux and growth and expansion, and it's such a beautiful dance that we all do together. And I like those little benchmarks, those little kind of, oh, cool. Yeah. Look at that. That's no longer my normal. Now this is kind of the new normal, or whatever, however you like to look at things. And so I love the fact that you're giving voice to all of that, and just amazing work that you do in the world. I so appreciate you. And I just love knowing that you're out there doing what you do.
Well, it's a great joy, that's for sure.
Oh, very cool. Let's remind folks one more time where they can go to find out more about you.
At timfreke.com, where there's all sorts of goodies. And as I said, I'm coming to America. These deep awakening retreats are my real joy, really, because at the retreats, I'm a philosopher. I like to share deep ideas, but the real juice is actually being in the deep awake state together and seeing people either experience it for the first time, or maybe they've experienced it and lost it, and finding they can recapture that, or seeing what's in the way of them just coming into this, and creating a really fun and safe and deep environment where people can do that. So I'm doing that at Omega in October. So that's when I'm going to be in your wonderful country next.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, we'll see if we can't connect while you're out here. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Tim. You're delightful, and I really do appreciate you and your perseverance and just showing up in the world. Thank you for everything.
Thank you for having me on the show. I've really enjoyed myself.
Oh, absolutely. And to all of you out there, as always, we appreciate your loyalty. So thank you for listening. Until next time, go out, uncover your superpowers, and change the world. Take care, everyone.
Are you ready to discover your superpowers? Go now to superpowerexperts.com and discover your superpowers today.